I am promoting him to panelist. Aha.
Oh, I see. So that's I'm yelling. I'm all like, hello.
Hi, Martin. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
I am sure glad you're here because I am probably not the person parents want to tune in and hear tonight to talk about stress and anxiety. You're the guy.
Well, I'm sure they do. I'm sure they want to hear from you as well.
Well, you know, always have a nice background, play some soothing music, which is what we did a little bit before you came.
Yeah.
And folks, thanks so much for your patience. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Martin Rees. And if you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A. I will answer, or Martin, would you like me to kind of raise my hand as you present or let you know there's a question, or we can do that at the end, whatever your preference is?
No. I think that I can handle if someone has a question in the Q&A. I will, let me see, you know, this always works a little different for me. So,
Okay.
um,
So if there's a Q&A, I'll just let you know when there's a little break and we can take that on.
Sounds great.
Okay. Awesome.
Sounds great. And so I want to make sure I get my everything right. Guys, I'm glad that we are here, and I'm glad that I'm not the only one that possibly runs into some technical issues. I had some technical issues earlier. So it was a challenge getting here and getting ready.
Well, we appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
I am here.
Yay.
And we are going to have hopefully a nice discussion. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And I do want to say, as you guys can see, you know, I'm not sure how this thing always works out. I work with COPE. My name is Martin Rees, and we provide additional family services. And if you're interested, you can go on to COPE's COPE website and look see some of the different events that are coming up. Okay, so as I share my screen, I know what will happen is everyone will disappear. I can't see you. So I want you to please feel free to pop something in the questions and answers. I'll have that up. And just let me know. I would like for this to really be interactive because it is important that we are able to communicate and talk about where we're coming from in our perspective of life, and those who may be struggling with stress or anxiety or depression and things in our lives, as well as ourselves. Okay, I do not, here we go. All right, so I am going to share my screen and we will get started. Okay. So one of the things we don't always do, while this is a great picture, I like this picture. Anxiety and depression does not always look like this, right? Sometimes anxiety is short-tempered. Sometimes anxiety plays itself out in the inability to sleep at night, right? So we're up, our minds are constantly thinking about anything. It can be something positive, something negative, but we wind up not having the ability to get the rest that we need. Not getting enough rest has a funny effect on us. We get some brain shrinkage. We'll get short-tempered over different things. Sometimes our cognitive process and how we connect the dots for different things in life that we do on a normal basis, it doesn't always work. So for example, we put toast in a toaster oven and we can forget that we put toast in the toaster oven, right? So if we get a chance to talk about this, please feel free to raise your hand or ask any questions. Make sure I drop the Q&A down here for you. All right, so look at depression's main points. What is depression? How to reduce it? Dealing with depression. And we'll exchange as you get a chance to go through this. Anxiety and depression, they are two separate diagnoses and they operate differently, okay? But anxiety can bring about some depression. So major depressive disorder, right, is a common and serious medical illness that negatively affects how you feel, not for a short period of time, right? Like today, I had some technical issue and it may have me down a little bit. But as we move forward, I begin to feel a little better. Not that form of depression. Clinical depression goes on for weeks, months, and sometimes even longer when undetected. We may not even know. So we may stop exercising if we enjoy a good hike or run. We may not make the meals we enjoy the most if you're a foodie, right? And you like to really just be in the kitchen and do some things. Those things may stop and you may start settling for doing some other things. I do want to share a quick video with you guys. So I am going to make sure I'm optimized for video and we will come back after the video plays and hopefully you'll have some discussion.
Depression is the leading cause of disability in the world. In the United States, close to 10% of adults struggle with depression. But because it's a mental illness, it can be a lot harder to understand than, say, high cholesterol. One major source of confusion is the difference between having depression and just feeling depressed. Almost everyone feels down from time to time. Getting a bad grade, losing a job, having an argument, even a rainy day can bring on feelings of sadness. Sometimes there's no trigger at all. It just pops up out of the blue. Then circumstances change, and those sad feelings disappear. Clinical depression is different. It's a medical disorder, and it won't go away just because you want it to. It lingers for at least 2 consecutive weeks and significantly interferes with one's ability to work, play, or love. Depression can have a lot of different symptoms: a low mood, loss of interest in things you normally enjoy, changes in appetite, feeling worthless or excessively guilty, sleeping either too much or too little, poor concentration, restlessness or slowness, loss of energy, or recurrent thoughts of suicide. If you have at least 5 of those symptoms, according to psychiatric guidelines, you qualify for a diagnosis of depression. And it's not just behavioral symptoms. Depression has physical manifestations inside the brain. First of all, there are changes that could be seen with the naked eye and X-ray vision. These include smaller frontal lobes and hippocampal volumes. On a more micro scale, depression is associated with a few things: the abnormal transmission or depletion of certain neurotransmitters, especially serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine, blunted circadian rhythms, or specific changes in the REM and slow wave parts of your sleep cycle, and hormone abnormalities, such as high cortisol and deregulation of thyroid hormones. But neuroscientists still don't have a complete picture of what causes depression. It seems to have to do with a complex interaction between genes and environment, but we don't have a diagnostic tool that can accurately predict where or when it will show up. And because depression's symptoms are intangible, it's hard to know who might look fine but is actually struggling. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, it takes the average person suffering with a mental illness over 10 years to ask for help. But there are very effective treatments. Medications and therapy complement each other to boost brain chemicals. In extreme cases, electroconvulsive therapy, which is like a controlled seizure in the patient's brain, is also very helpful. Other promising treatments, like transcranial magnetic stimulation, are being investigated too. So if you know someone struggling with depression, encourage them, gently, to seek out some of these options. You might even offer to help with specific tasks, like looking up therapists in the area or making a list of questions to ask a doctor. To someone with depression, these first steps can seem insurmountable. If they feel guilty or ashamed, point out that depression is a medical condition, just like asthma or diabetes. It's not a weakness or a personality trait, and they shouldn't expect themselves to just get over it, any more than they could will themselves to get over a broken arm. If you haven't experienced depression yourself, avoid comparing it to times you've felt down. Comparing what they're experiencing to normal temporary feelings of sadness can make them feel guilty for struggling. Even just talking about depression openly can help. For example, research shows that asking someone about suicidal thoughts actually reduces their suicide risk. Open conversations about mental illness help erode stigma and make it easier for people to ask for help. And the more patients seek treatment, the more scientists will learn about depression, and the better the treatments will get.
All right. So that is, I guess you could say, the skinny on depression. And so when dealing with depression, as you can see, it's a lot different. Sometimes it can be as visible as the picture that we saw. Sometimes we can discover if a person in the family is depressed by asking the right questions, even with ourselves examining who we are. But when we look at anxiety, right, we have to understand that anxiety is the onset of the continuous thought about things that concern us. So it could be safety, it could be homework, it could be social activity, not having enough, or not being in a good place with our friends. And it has a huge effect on our sleep and our health, pretty much in a similar way that depression does, right? So anxiety can cause us to miss meals because we may be worried about putting on weight and not fitting in with a specific crowd. We can be worried about whether we have the right kind of makeup, shoes, clothes, live in the right type of neighborhood. For some people, the vehicle that they drive is important to their status. And when something happens, they are hit really hard with anxiety. See, any advice on how to manage depression when there are barriers seeking treatment, such as staff shortage or therapists? There are some things. Thank you for asking. So some of the things that we can do that they have provided us in more modern times as mental health becomes important, right? And this is the thing to understand is because depression is a mental health issue, it does not mean a person is crazy, okay? It just means that the state of your mental well-being is being challenged, okay? So a couple of things that can be done is making sure you get out, right? Don't sit in the house. I do have on here another video where a young lady talks about that, and we'll share some of that. But you want to make sure you get out, do everything you can, and just, man, walk around. I get days where I walk around. We have a mall not too far from here. It's a strip mall. I get about 6 miles worth of steps in. And so that helps me. I'm an outdoors person. So I like to be outdoors, enjoying nature, and it doesn't matter what time of year it is. So I would say do some of those things. The other thing is to find a music, right, that you really enjoy that's kind of uplifting. I don't know that I would encourage uh, a song that's kind of down unless it's something that helps you to deal with the loss of a person, right? A change in a relationship, right? I can remember turning to blues um, when a relationship ended as my way of coping with the end of that relationship, right? Um, and it allowed me to kind of express myself. So if your depression has come about because you may have been abused, and sometimes that's the case, right? We find that uh, depression can set in after significant amounts of trauma, because trauma makes us feel helpless and hopeless, as if no one cares, there's no one there to do anything for us. We need to regain that. And so getting out and becoming active and doing some things, even if it's by yourself, treat yourself to a movie, treat yourself to a new outfit, pair of shoes, um, a steakhouse dinner, if that's what you want, sing in the shower, dance like nobody's looking, but be active. That always helps. The other thing that may help is if you have a close friend, someone you can talk to, let them know that, I kind of really want to talk. I need to get this out, right? And you talk with that person, and they may ask you right now, if you're depressed and you're feeling suicidal, let me know. Uh, I have access to some resources to help you out if you feel that way. If you're at a point where you want to do self-harm, right? We can talk. I'm a person. I'm here because I don't mind listening and I don't mind sharing with you some things that may be able to help you. But I want to encourage you to continue to seek professional help. Professional help does not always have to be at a hospital. Again, you can call COPE. There are other professionals in the industry that may be in the private sector. One of our clinicians, Kim, she's like that. She has a private practice. And so you may be able to call and talk to her, or get the person who is feeling depressed to talk with her. But there are resources in other ways. Go out for a museum, enjoy the museum, right? But get out, do something, take a painting. And I know it can sound strange. It may be things you've never done before, but sometimes we find the greatest joy in things that we've never done before. Painting a picture. I got a friend, after her divorce, we all went to school together, but after her divorce, she was hit so hard, she did that. She took up painting, and oh my gosh, she just like started painting. Everything around her house became a paint project. She painted wine bottles, painted pictures on them. And last year, after years of doing that, she actually got a contract with her city to paint utility boxes. So her art is on utility boxes. She is now in the midst of a huge project where she's working with other artists to paint a wall, a mural, and it turned her life around. So sometimes arts and crafts help to turn things around for us, understanding how wonderful we are, right? Sometimes during depression, our self-esteem gets low, and it's important to know that we are precious, we are valuable, right? We are irreplaceable. And so I do want to say that those are the type of things you want to share with anyone you come across that has depression. Let them know that they are wanted, they are loved, and that they are important to everyone they come in contact, even people they don't necessarily know. Sometimes just being in somebody's presence generates a good feeling for them. So I want you to think about resources outside of the traditional resources. If you can't get a therapist, right, use some people to be your therapist, use some art to be your therapist, or some form of entertainment, right, where you get a chance to interact and do it. You want to make sure that you do some thorough research, right? Exercise is good, laughing, comedy, watch a Saturday Night Live skit may help. Getting those endorphins moving, laughing has a way of changing that chemical imbalance and getting some things going and making us feel better. The more we can do that, the better we will feel, the more capable we become of dealing with our depression. The more we can now focus on our own personal language of how we view things, right? Instead of saying the glass is half empty, we can always take the view that the glass is half full. I'll just get some more juice or water, whatever I need to fill it up or to add something to it. Take a dance class, right? I like that. You get a little older sometimes and your activity is not as great as it was. And you lose friends, right? Things happen. We lose some mobility, but it doesn't mean that we can't get out and still enjoy life and do some things. So I want to encourage you to do that. Any other thoughts, questions? So I'm going to share this specifically for my anonymous person, because these are some tips that can help. And then we're going to take a quick look at anxiety. Okay. All right. So, as you look here, right, changing our environment. So, one of the things we can do when we can't get to a clinician, right, a therapist, is we can change our environment. My mother used to, during wintertime and springtime, rearrange the furniture, move stuff around. Now it might be a good time to start decorating, right? If you haven't broken the decorations out in a while, and it's like, man, I don't have anybody to celebrate. It's not to do it to have someone to celebrate. It's to do it for you, because it's the thing that you like and enjoy. Okay. So you want to make sure that you change your environment up, move furniture around if you have to, put up those Christmas lights if you want to put Christmas lights up. Maybe you don't want to decorate outside, just decorate inside. Maybe you don't want to do a lot of decorations, it's just a little bit, but you want to go ahead and do that. Get you some of those hot oils, right? Where those incense that just remind you of the holiday season and enjoy those fragrances. Take a stormy walk down by the beach, right? It's been a long time, but my mind remembers how much fun it was as a kid just to have a rain suit on, walking along the beach while it was storming and the ocean was just raging. Just so much fun, right? Do things like that. Change your environment. Get you some plant life to liven up the place, right? Flowers are always good. Treat yourself to those. Some flowers, favorite colors, whatever you find and like, do those. I'll be having me some chocolate chip cookies, and my little sister shared an eggnog recipe with me, and it's eggnog season, so I'll be getting some for myself, right? This it's just one of those things, but changing your environment is a way to help in dealing with depression. Process for it is to see a therapist. You see is number one here, right? Expression. It's okay to say, I'm depressed, I'm unhappy, I don't like my situation, I don't like this, right? Those things are all healthy, and you want to find somebody that you can talk to, right? So these were the things that I talked about: involvement, sleep. Now, again, you want to monitor your sleep. You don't want to sleep too much, right? Break it up. If you had a good 8 hours of sleep at night, but you're just like, oh my God, I want to lay down, go for a walk, right? Go for a walk. Get out, change that environment so that it energizes you for an hour or two, right? Drive someplace or walk out your front door and just kind of walk and walk and walk. Set an alarm on your phone to walk, let's say, I don't know, 30 minutes. And I'm gonna just walk for 30 minutes. No particular place to go, just walk. When that alarm goes off, turn around and go back. I promise you'll feel a little better, right? Do some exercises. Exercise may seem like it's hard, it's not. Right in your living room. You don't have to do much. Up and down in a chair, right? Some jumping jacks, toe touches, lift one knee up at a time, doing some Tai Chi. You can find Tai Chi and yoga generally on TV, and you can do some of those things. And then set a consistent schedule, right? I had to learn to use my calendar for everything, right? Because sometimes life can be overwhelming. And so for me, as life was becoming overwhelming, I thought I need to put some controls in place, right? So that I can still have some fun, do some things like, I don't know, go out tonight. Today, my wife and I earlier went to the movies. Just randomly. We never go to the movies in the afternoon. And we just got a chance to have a nice afternoon at the movies out in Emeryville at that. So we drove some distance away from our home to do that. And we participated with the group of others. So when it talks about a support group, right? Churches provide great support groups. Sometimes old friends, right? Old friends you have not seen for a while, make a phone call and say, hey, what are you doing? Right? And see if they want to just hang out, have a tea party. My wife and her girlfriends, they had been doing that. They haven't done anything for the winter as of yet, but that's what they would do. About once a month, they would go and they got a spot where they had tea and they just kind of talk and hang out and do their things. So do that, get a support group. What are some of the things? Anybody here have anything else that they actively do or have done when they felt down and depressed? No? Yes, oversleeping is a possible symptom of depression, right? Now, there could be some other things that that go along with that. I'm not a therapist, right? So I don't have the ability to clinically diagnose a person for depression. Is why you always want to make sure that you see a person who is clinically licensed to help you to understand if you really are depressed or not, right? If you've been oversleeping for months, right, it's very possible. And when we talk about oversleeping, I'm not talking about 10 or 15 minutes, even an hour, right? But where it's just a day-to-day thing every day. You're sleeping 10, 12 hours, sleeping throughout the day, right? It's possible. The other thing could be your bedtime routine, right? So oftentimes we don't talk about bedtime routines as it pertains to adults, right? We don't talk about bedtime routines and how it affects our health. So to answer your question, yeah, sometimes you need to make sure that if you've gotten 8 hours of sleep, that you are doing something so that you get some type of activity in. If a teenager is struggling with sleeping, racing thoughts, how do you think a parent can best support their kid? Do you suggest any coping mechanisms other than meditation? There's quite a bit of different things. So let me share this video because Tanya, one of the things you're talking about is what accompanies anxiety, right? Those racing thoughts, the thought of failure, the thoughts of not fitting in, right? What the kids call FOMO, fear of missing out, and things like that. Jeff, you seem to have left medication out of the process for dealing with depression. How does medication fit into this paradigm? Let me say this. I left medication out because a lot of times people associate what I'm sharing with you as a diagnosis, right? And it is my belief that a professional who has the ability to diagnose depression and anxiety would be the ones to be able to talk about medications. I am not. So I'm not an authority on the medications. I'm not an authority on how those medications work. If a person has been diagnosed, right, by a clinical psychologist and given medication, the things I do know is that the medication helps. It takes some time to get the formulation right for each patient, right, or client. And that is something to definitely take up with clinical psychologists, right, which I am not. So I just want to be sure that I'm clear that I am not a clinical psychologist. So I do not talk about medication because I do not have the authority to be able to do that. I don't have the knowledge on that. Okay. What I share with you, I share from some of the things that I've actually had a chance to do when spending time with people, right? Some of whom are on medication, some are not, right? And it's an effort, but it's an effort on my part as a friend, oftentimes to get them up and out, take them to go get a haircut, right? To be active and do some of those things and reassure them that somebody, even outside of me, loves them. I lost a friend a few years ago because he kind of gave up. His health went bad. And even though we spent time together, he was secretly eating foods he wasn't supposed to eat. and that habit took him away from here. And his brothers and I, we talked for a long time about it because they knew that he and I were close, right? So most of what I share information I get from like CDC, right, and other clinicians for you. And I'm not a clinician who can diagnose and provide information regarding medication. So I hope that answered your question. And we are going to see about this video here. All right, and I'm going to share this. Uh-oh.
And anxiety in the home. You know, if you're... Hey everybody, Tom Thalen here. Today I want to give you some quick coping strategies for stress and anxiety in the home. You know, if you're feeling anxious today, you're not alone. You might be like any person who actually ends up transferring stress around in your home. When I show a red arrow here, I'm just sort of saying a negative transfer of stress. Here we have the parent level, here we have kind of the kid level. Back and forth it goes because we're not managing it. This was actually something that was discovered by Dr. Murray Bowen from Georgetown University in the 70s and 80s. He studied stress in the home, and what he found was that undealt with stress got projected, and usually in a negative way. And he wasn't just talking about it and dealing with it, it was actually pushing it out or picking it up on others. And if it wasn't dealt with here at the parent level, some of this stress and anxiety would go out in a negative way. So these are things like addictions and escapism, just falling into negative, destructive behaviors. And another thing he observed is that if these arrows weren't dealt with, what would often happen is on the parent level, the stress and anxiety would end up being projected unwittingly on some child, what he would often call the focused child. Now what that means is, here's a kid who already has enough stress and anxiety of his or her own, and yet somehow they're bearing the brunt of their parents' stress and anxiety. We have to be so careful not to do this. Now, of course, this would be abuse and neglect and all of these traumatic events that hurt kids, but there are also more subtle things. When I raise my voice at our oldest daughter, or one of our 4 kids, it's not always the major, huge traumatic events. It's the cumulative small events that happen over time. It's kind of like the concussion issue in the NFL. It wasn't just the 3 big hits. It was cumulative over the course of an athlete's career. So how do we deal with this stress and anxiety and not create a focused child situation where this kid is bearing the brunt of the family's stress and anxiety? Quick tips right here. These are what we're doing at my house. My wife and I are really focusing with our kids on what we can control and what we can't control. So I can control, of course, my actions. And I think about just doing actions that are keeping me alive and keeping me motivated during this time. You know, first off, following all of the guidelines for our health right now is super important. But also just to get moving, get my body up off the couch. Every day we've been going for a walk around our neighborhood, and it makes us come back alive. What else can I control? I can control my input. So what am I putting into my brain and into my head and heart? And these things are all influencing me. If I'm only focused on the negative news, it's going to start to weigh me down. Now the news is important, we want to be informed, but we don't want to be dragged down and we don't want to stay there. So instead, I want to take some of that time where I was just sucking things down and I want to actually create some positive output. You know, we did a night where our kids all created a game. They created like a board game. So our daughter Lucy, who's 9 years old, created a game that she called Do Your Thing. And it was kind of a racetrack thing. You go around the board, but each time you roll, you had to sing this song, hum a song, and the rest of the family had to guess it. It was so cool. We really ended up enjoying that game and played it for about an hour just a couple nights ago. And so we're looking for output that can be Things that are creative, that make us come alive, playing music, playing a sport if you can get outside, just being active in our families and doing things that really exercise our creativity. And the last one is, if I can do these three, I can also adjust my attitude. Your attitude is one of the only things you can control in life. And so as you go through these positive actions, you say, I can control these, and I have to focus on what I can do, not what I can't do. And I'm not going to write out 4 for these, I'm just going to write out 2. I can't control others. That's such a big deal. If I am focused in on fixing other people and changing them, making them do something different, it's just negative energy that I cannot really have much influence over. And so I have to say, I can't control others. And another thing I can't is I can't control the future. But if I look back at what I can control, I realize that all of these things together become a positive influence to the people in my life, the others in my life who need me to be a strong, positive parent and spouse, and someone who wakes up and says, I can control my attitude. I can reset and start over each day. I really want to encourage you to use this time at home with your families as a gift. As long as you're staying safe and healthy and you're at home, take advantage of that time. Take advantage of it relationally and even just socially and emotionally in your home so that you can cope with the stress that comes. You're not a weirdo for being stressed out. You're normal. So let's try to handle it in a positive way. Together we can do this.
I like that, right? So I am a true believer in that we aren't broken. We just need an opportunity and some better tools, right? So a person suffering from anxiety, depression, and just heavily stressed is not a broken person. And sometimes we treat them more like broken people than we do people, right? Sometimes we don't listen. We formulate an answer. So active listening becomes a good thing for those of us on the other side, right? When a person needs to talk, we need to be able to listen. So a person who's depressed, we never want to tell them they'll get over it, right? It'll go away. It will get better in time, right? Because that's really not how it works. We have to have that conversation. We have to talk about it. Share with me what's on your mind. For those who have anxiety, right, and their minds are constantly at work. My son is like that. He takes medication for his anxiety. I got him one of those weighted blankets, right? And I've suggested a bedtime routine for him where if he can just turn all his devices off, he can start to wind down, right? It takes a practice in order to be able to do that. And that is, even myself, it's 7 o'clock and my phone will shut down and say, okay, great. So no more business after 7 o'clock. And then at 10 o'clock, it goes completely dark and says it's bedtime, right? And I chose 10 o'clock as my bedtime because as I start to wind down, it takes me about an hour and a half to wind down from the day, go to sleep, and then I'm up at 7. And that has given me a good 8 hours of sleep, right? If I stay up a little later, sometimes I have to do paperwork, so it'll keep me up later, which means I'll purposefully sleep a little later, or I'll choose to take a nap throughout the day, right? So sometime in the day, I'll say, you know what? I'm gonna take a power nap, and I'll set my alarm on my phone, and I'll tell it to give me 20 minutes, 25 minutes, right? Take that power nap and just chill. I got music. Even before I got on here, I was having some technical issues. And I'm like, okay, when I get on, I don't really want to be stressed, right? So my music was listening to some Herbie Hancock, because I've been thinking about listening to Herbie Hancock all day. And that's what I did. I played some Herbie Hancock and then enjoyed that. And then that way, when I got on, I was good. I was good. I was like, okay, everything is all right. So yeah, some of the meditation helps, deep breathing, right? Quick, in a hurry solution, right? Hyperventilating, just feeling some kind of way, right? On edge, take that deep breath. Hold it for a few seconds, let it out, and do a couple of more until you get where you're relaxed now and can process your thoughts a little bit better, right? Thoughts, questions, comments? I know this is a tough subject, right? There's no crystal ball for this. Anxiety and depression is as complex as a human, right? Because it affects human beings, and we're all complex. We can watch a program or attend a seminar and gather different things from it, feel a certain way about it, all differently, having heard and seen the same things, right? And depression and anxiety is going to be the same way. Being able to know what that anxiety is about, right? Being able to ask that question, what's on your mind? What's on your mind? Had a conversation. What is on your mind, right? Maybe it's school. Maybe, in fact, when it comes to a young teen, they may feel like you think it's stupid, right? They may think that you'll never understand. And any of those things can be right, but it doesn't mean that you have to live that life for them, right? You can let them know, you can talk to me about anything, and then listen, and only respond when they want feedback, right? Learning how to communicate with our young people is important. Providing them the respect, right, that they really need and deserve, even at their age, becomes important to them. Their life and the crises in their life is very real to them, right? Thank you, Emmy. It's just very important that we get locked not into the outcomes we want, right? But the outcomes that the kids want, right? That becomes really important. Okay.
I know, I really appreciate you saying that, Martin, and thanks so much for your time tonight. Anxiety and depression is something we are seeing with students, more so, and I don't know, Martin, if you can speak briefly on the return for students to school with the pandemic. I think for some students, they were very excited to come back and it was a welcome opportunity. For others, it has been an anxious time for students, and anxiety and depression. We're seeing more of that in the schools. And maybe that's, that will come down as students adjust back to a more normal routine with school. But that is something I think our parent community is experiencing, and certainly we're seeing. I'm sure you're seeing it too in your office.
Yeah, it's funny. So my daughter just took a promotion as a student advocate down in Los Angeles. I forget what the position is called. But one of the things we always talk about when it comes to kids is we don't talk to them, right? So every kid doesn't enjoy being in school, right? I was a kid that was made fun of earlier in life in school. I would have loved to have stayed home. Some parents, educators and things don't get that education needs to kind of be a choice, right? Some kids can't be at home because they need to be around other people. Yeah, depression. In fact, suicide, opioid overdose, drug use and addictions are up, right? And when I say up in the state of California, we had over 6,500 opioid overdoses for children 12 to 17, right? We have had a higher suicide rate of children 10 to 16. So something has happened, and it's not just the results of the pandemic, right? It is there is a change that we aren't privy to, right? So sometimes as parents, we social media is new. Let me just say this. Social media is new for us, right? Our children are born into it and with it. And it's a tool that they use just as much as we talk in person, they use it on a regular daily basis. Not having that can cause anxiety and depression, right? For some kids, the idea of I can't participate in this sport if I don't go to school, right, causes anxiety. For some, they need the feedback, right? We're all different. Sometimes I need a pat on the back that says, hey, Martin, you really did a good job, right? That makes me feel good. If I don't get that feedback, right, I begin to feel a certain way. When I don't get to see you guys and your lovely faces, right, I begin to feel a certain way. And it's just one of those things, right? It's how we're raised, right, may dictate what we need and what we don't need. So I think that as time goes on for parents, the key is to understand your child, right? Not every other kid, right? Not the school system, but understanding your child, their needs, what they enjoy, and help them to get that out the education system, right? It may be a hybrid. You may be uncomfortable with homeschooling, but maybe you can find somebody who's homeschooling their children and you can say, would you mind helping me with mine? They don't want to go to the school, right? They live maybe 3-4 blocks away, maybe half a mile, and you can drop the kid off in the morning and they get a chance to do homeschooling at a person's house. But you want to find that way to help them fit in. If they feel they're missing out on social events, I share with a group of dads, right? Because dads, we kind of fall short sometimes on play dates, right? We don't quite get what a play date is, but set up play dates, right? Set up times to get children active in sports, or music and dance, and all those extracurricular activities if you want them to have a social life, right? So those are some solutions. When it comes to self-esteem, right? One of the best things I think my mother ever did was always tell us how beautiful we were, how smart we were, right? And how we could do anything that we put our minds to it. Just do it. Try it. Don't tell me you don't like it and you haven't tried it. Let me see. Oh my God, that looks so good, right? That positive praise. She was great for that. And sometimes as parents, we have to remember those things. Children who have anxiety oftentimes need that kind of support because their minds are constantly thinking about areas they can fail. And it's like, you know what? You are wonderful. You did really good on that test, I'm sure, right? Help them to start to feel better about themselves. And finally, a coping mechanism that we use that comes from Triple P is to remember 2 things that went well and 1 thing that could be improved upon, right? If you always find the 2 things that went well, no matter how catastrophic something may seem, right? then it changes how you process information. When you look at something as, instead of disastrous, but something I can improve upon, it gives us that bounce back ability. And so that's a good coping strategy as well. Two things that went well, one thing I can improve upon.
Thank you, Martin. I really appreciate it. And we appreciate your time tonight with us. And I would, unsolicited from parents, but based on my time as a teacher and high school principal for many years, I would always tell parents, I know this is the time, at least for high school students, to whom we're speaking tonight, of parents, where students want to pull away and they don't want you to be involved in their life. And it is a time to find a way to continually connect. For some reason with my son, it was always driving in the car. We have our best talks when we are driving in the car on some long drive, and he can finally open up to me. I'm not looking at him, but we're just driving, and he'll always tell me the deepest things that are going on in his life. And I think it's just always find that way, find that moment, whatever it is in your family, where all of a sudden a moment happens and you take advantage of it. They try to push you away at this age and say they don't want you in their lives, and you don't understand, and you'll never ever know. But you know, it is important to continually reach out and try to find those opportunities to connect. It really does make all the difference. Yes. And don't listen to them when they tell you that they just want to be alone, you know, all the time and not have you involved. Right. They want you involved. No, they want you involved.
They want you to beg for it. They want you to kidnap them in the car. Right?
They do.
Oh, let's go for a ride. Lock the doors, kidnap them, take them for a ride. Right? Yeah. Do some things. It's funny. You're right, because every teenager I've ever met, including when I was one, just wanted to be independent. In fact, I was 17 when I left home to set out and take care of myself and go to school and things like that. And so I can relate to a lot of young people who are like, you know what? I'm just so tired of this. I want to go. And I'll say, man, you know, the military is available. It's a great stepping stone in life. College is available, right? There's all these things that you can do. I don't want to discourage you, right? I want to be here for you. My dad taught me that. My grandfather taught me that, right? It's not about I'm going to run your life and control you. It's great. That's what you want to do. I'm here. You know, when you come back, you fall down, right? Prodigal son, you get out there, you've done everything you think you can do, but you still feel, I'm here. Come on back, right? And we can do this a different way. At some point, our only job as a parent is guidance, right? I think you're going too far to the left, right? But if you're going to go to the left, maybe here's some tools you might be able to use, right? If it were me, I'd go this way. Why? Because I went to the left and this didn't work for me. Doesn't mean it won't work for you, right? But here's some tools that may be able to help you out. And we got to get comfortable letting our kids fall, right? It's okay for them to fall, get skint knees, elbows, right? Little knots on the forehead. It's okay. Let them get a black eye or two. They will learn something from it, but be there for them, right? Dust them off. Are you okay? Yep, great. Move on, right? I'm here when you want to talk to me.
100%.
Yeah.
So with that, we will let everybody get back to, I'm sure, your busy home lives and time with your families. Again, Martin, thank you so much for your time with us tonight.
Thank you guys for being here.
As part of our COPE series. And again, for our parents, don't forget to visit our website. Again, because I'm just shamelessly plugging what we have in the district. But for those of you who maybe didn't hear, go to that parent part on our website, that parent education link. You can see our webinar. Martin, you can see yourself recorded here on some other your other webinars previously. And you can register for our next one, which is done by Contra Costa Crisis Center on suicide awareness. And then we also have the one on sports and wellness done by our own parent and sports psychologist, Doug Gardner. So again, thank you so much, parents. Appreciate you being here tonight. Martin, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And this recording will be available probably tomorrow on the website. So thanks, everybody. Good night.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.